Hello, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of Brown Overboard. I'm your host, Josh Bam Bam Brown. Tonight, I thought I would go through some of y'all guys' questions and comments and give some answers to some frequently asked questions. Now, these questions were pulled from all over the internet and our different social media on YouTube and TikTok and Instagram and Facebook and all that good stuff. So I do want to apologize in advance if I way mispronounce any of y'all guys' names. Now, these are the usernames and whatnot that are on there, but I'm sure these are taken from y'all's actual names, or at least a lot of them are. And I have been known to massively mispronounce people's names in the past. So you'll have to forgive me for that. I will do my best. So the first question comes from Lori Kosavrigal. I hope I'm at least getting that close. And Lori asks, "Hey Bam, is that a bear claw around your neck, and is there a story behind it?" So this is actually a bear tooth. So you were close. This is the eye tooth of a black bear. And I have worn this necklace since I was about 2.5 years old, or almost 3. So I've had it for a very, very, very long time. And long story short, yes, there is indeed a story behind it. We've never been big on hunting predators. We don't really hunt bear, but we have eaten a few bear in the past when it was necessary, when we had to. And this actually came from a black bear that made a really good stew when I was very, very young. And my dad actually carved this with a pocket knife and gave it to me when I was, like I said, I think about 3 years old. I think I was about 3, somewhere in there. And it's gotten a little bit beaten up. I'm not sure how well y'all guys can see that, but it's gotten a little bit beaten up. He used to have more of a nose on there, and there are pieces missing of it, and I've had to wrap it with leather and use some glue and whatnot and change out the leather that it's strapped onto my neck with a few times because I've worn it for decades, right? And a lot of people, they would probably take something like this and lock it away into a special container or put it into a box of special stuff and put it up on a cabinet somewhere. But if I did that, I'm sure it would get lost, or it would be, destroyed, or in a fire or something like that. And because the only reason I have managed to keep up with it this long is because I wear it around my neck. So it's one of the few things in my life I've been able to hold on to that way because I wear it constantly. I wear it every day, and I will continue to wear it until it turns to dust. I will wear it for as long as I possibly can. Nothing lasts forever, so someday I'm sure I will be parted from this necklace, but I've worn it for a very, very long time and will continue to wear it until it is just completely gone. But it's so special to me because it's one of the first things that my dad actually ever carved. So my dad always loved to whittle and mess around with things like that. But in Alaska, he really started taking to the artisticness of carving. And he started off carving things like this bear tooth and whittling on sticks and carving little figurines and things like that. And then he progressed into having Dremel tools and doing wood burning and all kinds of stuff like that. And then chainsaw carving. Dad loved to do chainsaw carving, and he was really good at it. My dad was really good at it. The house that we built in Haines when I was a kid, after we moved off of Gypsy and moved onto the property in Haines, we built this really nice 2-story house that had bedrooms for everybody and a full kitchen and cabinets that my dad built by hand, and it was a really, really nice place. It's the house that burned when I was about 11. And there was a stairwell that went up to the second story. And my mom, she had drawn this really intricate, really cool picture on it of all these vines and flowers that went up the side of the staircase. And my dad went in with a chisel tool and his Dremel, and he carved it all out. And it was super cool. He like carved it with immense detail. He put a lot of effort and a lot of work into it, and then he varnished it, and it was beautiful. It was a focal point of the house, and it was beautiful. He did really well. It was super cool. And unfortunately, yes, that was in the house that burned. But my dad carved just tons of stuff. And so I've always thought that it was very cool. And one of the reasons it's so special to me is because this bear tooth is one of the first things that started his love for carving. And it's something that continues to mean a great deal to me and will forever. All right, on to the next question. This is from Respect the Queen. Hi, Bam. I have a question for you. What made you decide to get tattooed? Is it something you always wanted to do? Okay, so I do have a few tattoos, and the reason behind getting a tattoo obviously is because it's cool, or I think it's cool, and because there were some things that just meant that much to me, that it was something that I wanted to wear forever. Now, I would definitely advise anyone out there who is thinking about getting a tattoo, anyone out there who wants to get a tattoo, anyone who is on the cusp of going out and getting a tattoo, definitely make sure that it's something that you want to have forever, that it's something that you're not going to regret. And I know that there are, that it's probably difficult to ascertain whether or not you will ever regret something. And I myself am not really a regret kind of guy, right? Like when I make a decision, when I do something, I learn from that and I move on and I keep going. But definitely make sure it's something that means something to you. Like, I think that's one reason that I would never contemplate removing any of my tattoos. Is the reason why I like all the tattoos that I have, is because all of them are something that really means something to me, right? They're something that are a part of who I am, a part of what I am, and the tattoos just represent that in a very physical way because I'm actually wearing that story and that statement and that symbol on my skin, right? It's something that I've actually carved into my being. So I like all my tattoos. Now, I used to think that I would end up being one of the most tattooed in the family because I've always had an affinity for tattoos. I always thought they were cool. Now, I always knew that I didn't want to rush into getting a bunch of tattoos, that I wanted it to be something that definitely meant something to me. Now, I pretty much knew what tattoos I was going to get for a very long time. But I used to think that I was going to be one of the most tattooed in the family. And then several of my siblings, they just really outran me on that one. And now I would have to go like full Yakuza bodysuit to beat them because some of them have taken up a lot of real estate. Some of them have gotten some pretty large tattoos. Like my little brother Noah's got a really big dragon. And then Bear, of course, with his extreme across his whole back. And then Gaby has an outrageous back piece that is nowhere near finished that he is still working on, and it takes up his entire back. It's a large cross with wings, with like angel wings. Super intricate, super detailed, and he is still working on getting it finished. And there's probably quite a few more sessions that are going to go into that. And currently it's just blacks and grays and dark colors, but I think that he's actually going to color it in and it have, a bunch of different kinds of details. And I know there's a lot of stuff that he's adding to that. And then, of course, Bear, again, he's got like a neck tattoo even. His tattoo goes all the way up into his neck and stuff. So a lot of them have covered way more real estate than I have. Mine are a little bit more spread out and not that, gigantic. Like I got one on my shoulder, forearm, and on my back. I only really have the 3. And another thing about getting tattoos, though, in Alaska and in our old life, it's very difficult to come by a tattoo artist. It's an expensive thing. It's a difficult thing to get and to get well. Like, you don't just want to go to anybody. Like, you want it to definitely be someone that you trust their work, someone that you can look at what they do and go, yeah, I like that style. I think this is good for what I want, right? Because that's another thing I would suggest as well, because you don't want to just go to any tattoo artist and say, well, this is the tattoo I want, because most tattoo artists have like their style that they do tattoos. So you want to make sure that what you want fits into the style that they're capable and comfortable with creating. Because I know a lot of, all the tattoo artists that I have worked with, super cool, super talented. They were really good, really good. And I have been very fortunate in that way. Now, there were a couple of tattoo people that I did go to and I decided not to work with them, but that's no shade on them. It's just that their style, everything they were doing, it didn't fit what I wanted. It didn't fit my style. It didn't fit with the art I was looking to have created. So I'm glad that I waited. I'm glad I found tattoo artists that were in the style that I was wanting, because it's something that you're going to wear forever. So you should definitely make sure that it is exactly what you want it to be. And if you feel uncomfortable at all with the artist that you are going with, definitely bid them adieu and find another artist, because there are a lot of awesome, really cool, really good tattoo artists out there. Especially if you live somewhere where things like that are more available, you're going to be able to find probably a lot of talented artists, but there are probably going to also be a lot that aren't as talented, and there are going to be a lot that don't fit into like the style that you're looking for, because that's a big thing, is just find the artist that fits the art that you're trying to create, because you're going to wear this forever. So it's definitely a team effort when you're working with a tattoo artist. And I, like all mine, will I get any more tattoos? That's an add-on I'm putting onto the question that wasn't asked, but don't know is the answer to that one. Maybe, maybe not. We'll see. No way am I going to go as crazy as some of my siblings have, but we'll see. We'll see where the future goes, because I don't really make plans. I just kind of make all this stuff up as I go. On to the next question. This question is from Dolly. Will any of you and or all of you have any more shows besides the podcast? Okay, so I'm assuming you're asking about like Alaskan Bush People, if there will be more episodes or spin-off shows or anything of that nature. So currently, I am hosting, of course, the podcast here on YouTube, and it will be available on Spotify and Apple Podcasts and all the other podcast places once I'm able to do that, once I'm able to facilitate that. Or if you're listening to this on one of those, one of the Apple Podcast or Spotify, I guess I already made it there, because that is something that I'm working on. But to answer your question, currently we have been told with the show that we are on hiatus, that the show is not canceled, but it is on hiatus. Now, it's been several years since we have filmed any new episodes, but we have recently spoken to the individuals like at the Discovery Corp and the people that make the show, and there is still the possibility of the show being brought back. They let us know that we are definitely not canceled. However, as it sits now, we are free agents. So if anyone out there is listening from Netflix or Amazon or Disney or anything like that, give me a call. So will there be other shows? So as far as other creations and things by the family, like Bear has The Life of Bear that he hosts on YouTube, and Noah has a YouTube channel. I think Birdie does as well. Gaby's working on putting some stuff together that I'm actually going to help him with. And, the family is doing other things that we are doing, that we are helping each other with. And we have plans for a bunch of different things that we're putting together. But currently you can follow all of our different social media as well. Like everybody's got like all the socials, as the kids say. We're on all those things now. Some of us are on them more than others, like TikTok, for instance. Bear's on it all the time. He loves doing the lives and interacting with fans and doing all that stuff. Gaby's on it a bunch, hit or miss. Sometimes he'll be on it every day. Sometimes he'll be on it every now and then. Birdie's gotten actually way more into doing a lot of the social media than I ever thought she would be, because Birdie is very, very shy. She's very reserved. If you know anything about Birdie, you know that she's shy and reserved. But she's gotten really into the social media and doing the lives and stuff on TikTok as well recently. So you can definitely find us in a lot of different places. And there are some show things and show adjacent things that we are working on, that the family is working on. So I will keep you posted on that one as things develop further with anything that has to do with our show coming back or other ventures that we're on. All right. The next question is from Gene Taylor 156. Do you think the fame of being on TV has enhanced your family, or has it been a devastating effect on several members of your siblings? I would unequivocally say that the show has been drastically more positive than there has been any negative from the show. I think that any instance of things going awry with any members of the family or any of the drama or things like that are things that in one way, shape, or form would come about regardless. I think that some things can just be more personified because of it being in the public eye and things like that. So I think that everything that has to do with the show, in my opinion, has actually been really positive, because I think that our effect, the effect that our show has had, the amount of people that get enjoyment out of the show, the amount of people that like watched my mom go through her cancer battle and got some, strength to help them go through their own cancer battle, or the things that they were going through in their life, or if our show has any way taught anyone, how to survive in the wild, what not to do in a lot of cases maybe, or just that it's okay to be yourself, right? Regardless if anybody understands who you are or not, regardless of people approving, how you are or how you behave or what you wear or how you talk or any of those things. I think our show definitely stands for family, faith, and freedom, and getting to be yourself and not apologizing for just wanting to live your life the way that you do. I think there have been a lot of positive things that have come from the show in the way of us getting to have experiences that we might not have had otherwise. I think that there have been a lot of positive things that have come about because of the show. So I definitely don't think that it has been a devastating effect on the family at all. It has definitely enhanced, I think, our family dynamic, given us a different perspective on ourselves and on the way that we move through the world and on our closeness and how we behave as a family. And I've said it a lot before, but another thing that I just think is super cool about the show is the fact that it gives future generations of Browns the opportunity to look back and see how we lived our lives, to see and be part of the world that we lived in and the world that we created together. And they will be able to see professional home movies, basically, very professional home movies, and they'll get to experience those things with us. I think that it's super cool that all my nieces and nephews are going to get to know my dad in that way, because a lot of them, they weren't even born before my dad passed. And what I wouldn't give to be able to watch a show like ours about my dad and his family when he was a kid, right? What I wouldn't give to see stuff like that, of like my mom when she was growing up and my dad and his life that he had with his family. Like, how cool would that be if I could watch that kind of show? So that's something that I just think is super awesome about Alaskan Bush people. I think it's so cool that all my nieces and nephews and future generations of Browns will be able to get to look back and be part of that life and to learn the lessons that my dad wanted to pass on, and to get to see us in that element and in that world. So I think it's super cool. I think that nothing but good has come from the show. All right, moving on to the next question. And this question comes from Ashley C. Ashley says, love the wolf pack. Which lifestyle do you prefer? Life in the wild, unplugged, bartering, hunting, building your own homes? Or do you like the comfort of easier access that comes with modern day living? I would definitely say that to answer that question, there are pros and cons to both lifestyles. There are pros and cons to any aspect of living your life in a different environment. So one of the things that I definitely love about being more plugged into modern society is running hot water. It's something that I guarantee most of the people listening to this podcast right now take for granted. It's something that I have mentioned on the podcast before. It's something that I've talked about on the show. It's something that I have definitely referred to probably a lot in my life, because it's just awesome and magical to be able to walk into a bathroom, turn on a shower, and almost unlimited hot water start coming out of the shower head. And you're able to just take a hot, scalding hot, wonderful shower anytime that you want to. So I never take for granted being able to do that, because the majority of my life, I was either bathing in creeks or I was heating water like over an open fire or a stove and pouring it over myself. So if you've ever had to do that, if you've ever done that, then you definitely have a different kind of appreciation for being able to just take a hot bath. And I love bathing in a cold creek. It's not something that I ever hated. Like, I like heating my own water on a stove or an open fire and pouring it over myself and bathing like a cowboy. I like bathing in cold creeks. It's actually fun. It's invigorating. But it's, having the option to take a hot shower, love it. But it was never something that was a drudgery. It was definitely never something that myself or really anyone in my family hated. That aspect of life and bathing in the creeks and stuff. We love that lifestyle. Super awesome. And another thing that I like is being able to kind of facilitate and do some of the things that I'm doing. Now, we were able to do a lot of the things like trying to work on the books or recording our own things and stuff like that. And I had a YouTube channel. I was one of the first 1,000 people to ever sign up for the website YouTube long ago. Now, it was just different for me to be able to get on the internet to do something like that, because I had to walk a long ways to get to a library to be able to use the internet. So we did have access to things like that, just not as readily. So that is something that I am enjoying about being closer to civilization, how we are now, having the access to things like that, to do stuff like trying to create the podcast and to do voiceover work and to do, Zoom auditions and things like that for acting and whatnot. So it does afford different things for your life that you're able to pursue easier in this lifestyle. As far as bartering, I would go back to swords and gold coins if they would let me. So yes, I definitely prefer being less reliant on money. I don't like that it costs something no matter what. Like, it always costs something to live. There's nowhere that you can actually just exist without paying for the privilege of existing. Like in Alaska, in the wild, you can just exist. You can just be there, and it doesn't cost you anything. You don't have to pay for the privilege of existing or standing on the patch of dirt that you're on. Whereas the closer you get to any form of civilization, the more dependent on having to pay someone for the privilege of existing you get. And I definitely don't like that. Hunting, I still do hunting. I still hunt every chance that I get. It is not as much a part of my daily life as it used to be. And yes, I definitely miss that. That is something I prefer of the wild for sure. I love to provide my own sustenance. I love to go out and hunt and fish and secure the things that I need to live. As far as building our own home, still doing that. So that hasn't changed at all. And comfort and easier access. Yeah, I think that just all basically goes into electricity being readily available, not having to have generators or having the running hot water and stuff like that. All right, so moving on to the next question. And the next question comes from Sarah Ames 55. And I think I'm pronouncing that one correctly. And Sarah says, "Hello, loving the podcast. Glad you like it. I have only seen a few episodes of the TV show, but have enjoyed watching and listening to you on YouTube. Where in the world would you like to visit? You mentioned ancient Greek philosophers. What book do you reread? Also love the poetry recital stuff you did. Can more podcasts be of that?" All right. So let's get to that. That's more than one question. I'm glad you're enjoying the podcast. And let's see, where in the world would I like to visit? So the short answer to that is everywhere. I want to visit everywhere. I would love to see every corner of the world. The world is only so big, and I would like to explore every possible place that I could go to. Even a lot of the places that I might not should go to, I would still like to. I love to explore. I love to see new places. I love just traveling. Like, I know a lot of people, they want to go to places, but they don't enjoy the journey. They just want to go to the place and then they want to go back home. Where I myself, I really love the journey. I love to live the journey. I like traveling. I like all the aspects of traveling. I really enjoy exploring, or being what I call a re-explorer, because there's not a lot left to openly explore, but I get to re-explore a lot of stuff, right? So I would love to go and see everywhere. I would love to explore the entire world. I've always wanted to go to the Arctic. I've always wanted to see the Arctic, because that is somewhere that is outrageously out of the way. It is somewhere that is definitely less controlled than a lot of places, or less, way less populated. Not a lot of people go there. It's somewhere I've definitely always wanted to see. I have to see Japan. Japan is awesome. I'm very into a lot of Japanese architecture and history and things like that. A lot of my ancestors hail from like Scotland, Ireland, and that area, and I would love to go see that. I'd love to travel all over Europe. That would be very cool. I mean, who doesn't want to see the pyramids? Would love to go to Egypt and all those areas over there. Africa would be cool to see. All the different places in Africa. I know Africa is huge. New Zealand, I've heard wonderful things. Everything I've ever seen of New Zealand was beautiful. Would love to see Australia, even though I probably have more trepidation about going there maybe than anywhere, just because I'm not big on the creepy crawlies that can poison you. Like, the venomous creepy crawlies are not something that I would enjoy. They're not something I'm very fond of. So I would probably have more trepidation of going to Australia than a lot of places that might be technically more dangerous. But I want to see everywhere. I want to see the whole world. Would love to go to other worlds and explore those too. I'd love to go to Mars and check it out. I think that would be awesome. So I'm just a born explorer. I'm a gypsy at heart, and I want to see everywhere. All right, so ancient Greek philosophers. Yeah, I read all kinds of different forms of philosophy. I have for a very long time. I have since I was a kid. I got very into philosophy as a teenager, and it's something that has only grown with me more and more. It's something that I continue to study almost on a daily basis. What book do I reread? Well, I actually had an entire episode of the podcast about that, about Marcus Aurelius's Meditations. And that is a book that I reread over and over. Another book that I really love, it's a book that my dad read to me when I was a kid, and it definitely harkens to the lifestyle I grew up with, is Daniel Defoe's Robinson Crusoe. That's like one of my favorite books of all time. I've read it multiple times. One of the first books I ever read as a kid was Treasure Island, and that's one I've read multiple times as well. But as far as a book that I go back and reread every so often, definitely Marcus Aurelius's Meditations. I've read it a lot. It's a book that I highly recommend everybody reads. As far as the poetry stuff, I don't feature that as much on the podcast itself. The podcast is a different kind of show. I may have episodes maybe dedicated to something like that in the future. We'll see. But I also do a lot of like poetry stuff where I'm doing different videos on my different social media and stuff like that. I have a personal YouTube account that I will be putting more stuff like that out. In the future, I may do some episodes like of the podcast that pertains to different things like that. We'll see. We'll see how that goes. And I am also working on I'm doing a lot more audiobooks and audio works, and some of those are going to be poetry as well. So stay tuned for that if that's something that y'all guys enjoy. All right, moving on to the next question. So this question comes from Snow Owl. Are you heading to Alaska to see your brothers? All right, so currently Noah is actually back in Washington. So Noah got back from Alaska a little while ago, but Bear is still up there. He's actually in Haines, Alaska right now, awaiting the ferry so that he can get over to Prince of Wales. Well, he actually has to, I think, travel from Haines down to Ketchikan and then from Ketchikan over to Prince of Wales. Because in Alaska, travel is not like it is down in the lower 48. It's not something that you can just hop in your car and drive to the next place. Everything is not connected by road systems, and like the ferry only only runs every so often. It's not something that you can just get on every day. It's not something that is just readily available. And then the space is very limited as well. So if you don't know when you're going to be there and you're not able to book it like months in advance, then you end up having to wait for the next open ferry. Otherwise, you could book it and end up missing the ferry, and they do not refund. So in that case, you do not get your money back. And in most cases, it is not a cheap way to travel. And it's the only way to travel in Alaska if you want to move a vehicle from place to place. You're going to have to get on the ferry to go from place to place. And there are a lot of places in Alaska where you have to either travel by the ferry or you got to go by float plane. And you can't take your car on a float plane, obviously. So Bear is still in Alaska. Noah is back. But to answer the question, no, I do not currently plan to go back to Alaska. I am not headed up there, as far as I know, anytime soon. Like I've said before, I don't so much plan. Bam just kind of makes stuff up as he goes. I make it up as I go along. But currently, no, I am not. This is not part of the question, but I will add on to the question a little bit with my answer. Am I planning on heading up to Alaska at any point? We'll see. You know, I'm sure that at some point I'll want to go check out Noah's Island and see the house he has up there and check that out. I've seen pictures, but I've never gotten to see it in person. It seems really cool, and I would definitely like to check it out at some point. And I know when Bear has his property, because he's looking for property on Prince of Wales Island and in the surrounding areas. And so once he has his property, I'm sure I'm going to end up at some point going up there and helping him set some stuff up and get things working on his property. All right, moving on to the next question. So the next question comes from Rocky. And he's, okay, this is sort of a question, more of a comment. It says, it's y'all or guys, not y'all guys. Well, I respectfully disagree. I think that y'all guys is a more than appropriate way to refer to a group of people. So y'all guys, feel free to say y'all guys anytime you want to. And the next question comes from What Nana Sews. Are you going to add it to Spotify? So I'm assuming they're talking about the podcast, if I'm going to be adding the podcast to Spotify. And the answer to that question is most certainly yes. I do intend to put the podcast everywhere that I possibly can. I'm working towards making the podcast as much of a real podcast as it can possibly be. I definitely have a lot of plans to build the podcast up for the future. It's something that I enjoy doing. I enjoy hosting and producing the podcast. It's actually been a lot of fun doing the different interviews with different members of my family. I'm excited to branch out to interviewing other people outside of the family. And I enjoy doing the solo podcast as well, where I just get to talk about all kinds of different things and different topics. So I've got a lot of plans for the future of the podcast, and I definitely intend to list it on Spotify and get it on Apple Podcasts. And there's a bunch of other places that I want to put the podcast. And if this is being listened to sometime in the future, you might already be listening to this on Spotify. I don't know. All right. Moving on to the next question. And okay, this is another question from What Nana Sews. Why did you choose to live in Washington? So, this question. I did not choose to live in Washington. I was actually voting for Maine. So we had to move out of Alaska because of our dad's failing health and primarily because of our mom's cancer battle. Our mom was not able to get the medical care that she needed in Alaska, and it was not feasible for us to travel in and out of Alaska for mom to get the care that she needed, and then for her to get the subsequent testing and things that she needed to make sure she was okay. So it just wasn't feasible to continue living in Alaska. I know regardless of Dad's health, he would have stayed in Alaska no matter what, because he definitely did not want to leave, and he would have much rather passed away in the wilderness of Alaska than in Washington. But Dad was family first, and it was what Mom needed. And so the family could have split up, and some of us stayed in Alaska and some of us moved and all that. But that's not how the Browns are. That's not how the Wolfpack is. And so we all made the decision to move as a family so that we could be somewhere in the lower 48 that was connected to the road system, so Mom could get the care that she needed and get the subsequent testing and things she needed to make sure she was okay. So we knew we had to move out of Alaska. And yes, that meant letting go of the property in Alaska, letting go of the boat in Alaska, and everything that we had worked and fought for up there. Now, where we were deciding to move, that became a whole thing that we had to figure out. And originally, most of the family wanted to move to Colorado. And we actually had even already found a piece of property in Colorado that was actually super nice. It was a really good location. Everybody kind of loved it. And there were a few reasons why that property fell through, why it wasn't the perfect fit. And so we started looking for property elsewhere. And that brings me back to what I was voting for, which was Maine. I was voting for Maine because I thought Maine was really cool. It was really awesome. I actually went up there and checked it out and got to look all over the place. I actually found a couple pieces of really nice property, really nice. A couple of the properties were just gorgeous. They were wonderful. I loved it because it smelled like Christmas everywhere that I went, and it was a lot closer to the ocean. So like the property I was looking at, I think was like 45 minutes away from the ocean. And it was cool also because it was like on the other side of the country, so it was a different atmosphere. It was further away from what we had known as well, so it was like a different world, but still like akin to the middle of nowhereness of Alaska. It had that wild feeling to it, the area in Maine that we were looking at. And I was voting very vigorously for Maine. Unfortunately, I was outvoted by everybody, and everyone else chose Northern Washington, which is where we are now. And the reasoning behind that is because 30 some odd years ago, my parents came through Washington on their way to Alaska, and my mom really loved it. My mom loved Northern Washington. And so they had always remembered that. And so they started looking for property in Northern Washington. My dad, of course, has had gold fever basically his entire life. Well, he caught it in Alaska. So his latter parts of his life, he had an immense gold fever. And so he wanted to do a couple things with the property that he was looking for in Washington. He was looking for somewhere that maybe had gold mines on it. So he found this property and check, it had some gold mines. And then he wanted a big enough spread that everybody could have their own little parcel, that we weren't all just like shoved in a corner together, but everybody could really build their own forever home and have their own slice of land and their own piece of property. And so he checked that box too. And he wanted somewhere that he could potentially raise horses and longhorns and a farm and have animals, which was not something that was really feasible at all in Alaska. So it also checked that box. So since it checked all the boxes for the family, and it was basically everything they were looking for, everybody voted for Washington except me. I continued to vote for Maine. But that is why we ended up choosing to live in Washington. And here we are in Northern Washington, which is way too dry, gets way too hot in the summer, gets pretty chilly in the winter, and is just too dry. Way, way, way too dry. There are definitely some pros. You know, there are pros and cons to anywhere that you're going to live, anywhere you're going to find yourself. And it is beautiful here. Like up on the mountain, it's gorgeous. When you're up on the mountain and you look back over the hills and valleys and you got those sweeping clouds, it looks like a painting. So it is gorgeous, and it definitely has its upsides. I think I'd still choose Maine, but it definitely has its upsides. All right, moving on to the next question. And this is from Gina Lewis 24. Are you still building a house on the mountain? Yes, I am definitely still building a house on the mountain. I have not given up on that. I'm continuing to try to make that a reality and to make that work. I actually have the full foundation area for the house dug out and fixed and ready to go. There are some setbacks and things that I have run into over and over. Of course, the initial setback was the fact that the fire hit the mountain several years ago. And though that has been years, it has been really hard to bounce back from that. A primary reason for it being so hard to bounce back is the fact that I lost everything in that fire. So I had built a small cabin for us to live in while we built the big house, and it was super nice. I like triple insulated it. It was tongue and groove siding, inside outside. It was painted. It was finished. I even countersunk the screws on the interior and used wood putty, and it was sanded and varnished, and it was super lovely. And I was putting in a little wood stove, and I actually did this really cool thing with one of the windows on the back of it where I did like this Mayan calendar thing. So where the sunset marked what time of year it was, and it was like mapped out on a little calendar on the windowsill, which was super intricate and I thought was really cool. And not only that cabin that I had built, and also all our stuff that we had moved from Alaska, I had put everything in that little cabin 2 weeks before the fire. So I ended up losing everything I owned that wasn't in my truck. Literally. So other than that, I also had all of the things necessary to build the big house that we're building. So I had all the siding, I had all the lumber, I had all the insulation, I had all the 2x4s and 2x6s and all of the sheetrock that I needed. I had the roofing, I had the nails and the screws and the concrete and everything. I had all the tools necessary, and I had built other things on that property as well. We had hauled up 136 apple crates that we salvaged. The city was actually burning because they were deemed too old to use, and they were just getting rid of them. So they were burning all these apple crates that we found up in Oroville, and they told us that we could have as many as we wanted, but they weren't going to stop burning them while we were hauling them. So just for days, we were just hauling those apple crates a few at a time in my truck, and hauled 136 of them. And we had built out this super cool garden that was huge and all intricate, and built like one of those garden mazes, which was really cool. I had built a rabbit enclosure that was like 100 by 100. It was insanely cool. And I used these really old like railroad ties for the bottom of it to tie everything into. Had built a couple chicken coops on the property and a duck coop over by our little pond. And when the fire swept through, just lost everything. Lost all of it. I lost everything that I owned. I lost all of my tools that weren't in the back of my truck. I lost all of the material and lumber and that little cabin that I had built, and just everything. So that was a massive setback, because I basically lost the home I was trying to build before I was able to build it. And so it's really hard to come back from that. And then something that I have run into that I was working out at the time, but that some of the stuff has changed and whatnot, are like the legalities of what all you have to like map out, and the permits that you need for everything, and the way that there are so many different permits that go into all the different departments that you have to file all these different things with. And unfortunately, those also get when enough time passes, those get kicked back and you lose all that, and they do not refund. So like every time you lose that, you got to start over from scratch, and it just becomes a lot. So yes, I am still working towards building a house up on the mountain, but it's a slow go. And the last few years, I was helping out with everybody else's stuff instead of working towards just building my own. I was really helping, like the guys and we worked really hard to get Mom's place going, and to get her house livable and fixed, and to fix the kitchen and put in the flooring and all that stuff, and get it where it was actually livable and where she had a nice place. Right. So a lot of us pulled off from doing our own things to helping fix Mom's up, and to helping fix up other aspects of the property. Got a little long-winded on that answer, but short answer, yes, still working towards the mountain property, but it's slow. It's a slow go. All right, on to the next question. So this question is from Missy, and Missy asks, does your mom live at North Star Ranch? Who else lives up there? So yes, my mom lives on North Star Ranch, because we were actually able to build up her house that we were building, that Dad had started and that we finished for Mom, is livable, and my mom has been living on it basically full time for the last couple of years. And she does have to come down in the winter, just because the road system is really difficult to traverse. We haven't gotten it to the point where it's feasible to go in and out in the winter. So she does winter off the mountain, but she spends all summer, up there, summer, fall, spring. As soon as the road opens, she's up there. And then when it starts to close, she does it to come down for the winter. Several of us spend a majority of time up on the mountain. None of us are able to live up there completely full time at the moment. Bear was for a while. Gaby was for a while. We've had to go back and forth just because of it not being feasible to traverse the road and to do a lot of the jobs and things that we've been doing, to to do work and this and that, and people having new kids and adding on to their little wolf packs, and people going to the doctors and family stuff and all kinds of things going on, and some of my acting things I've had to travel for and all that stuff. So there are a lot of reasons as to why more of us aren't living on the mountain full time, but we are working towards it. So North Star Ranch, as I've said before, is more the dream of a ranch at the moment, but we are still working towards everyone having like their own forever homes on the property. All right, next question. Next question comes from Jubilee69. Whatever happened to all of you living on the mountain in Alaska? So I think you mean the island in Alaska, the island property, because we were living on Chichikov Island in Alaska. And that actually just ties into some of the questions I was already answering, because it's about my mom's cancer battle and our dad's failing health. And that's why we had to let go of the property in Alaska. And that's why we had to move. And all right, next question is from Christy. Do y'all think there will be another show? We love this show. All right. So, well, that ties into the question I already previously answered about not really knowing. So our show is not canceled. We're just on hiatus, and I will definitely keep y'all guys posted. The best way to continue getting information about the show, if and when it's coming back, what's going on, is just to follow our different social media. So like all of us have our different social media, and y'all guys will know something as soon as we do, but we're not canceled. We're just on hiatus as far as Alaskan bush people goes. And y'all guys can check it out. You can watch all the episodes they've currently aired on, I think, every streaming service out there now. Last time I looked it up to check and see what streaming services we were on, it was like all of them. I think we're on like everything now, which is kind of cool. All right, so next question. Next question is from Tara Rose 007. What's a brown Christmas look like these days? Do y'all all get together? So, Christmas has always been a very big thing in our family. It's always been a major holiday. We have always loved Christmas. It's always been something that we did our utmost to make it as special as possible for every member of the family, and that is definitely something that we still do. We're all very together, but we are also more spread out probably than we've ever been in a lot of ways. And with some of the things going on with different members of the family, it does make it difficult and nigh on sometimes impossible for all of us to be in a room at the same time together. But we do everything that we can to facilitate being able to experience Christmas as a family. So all of us that are in the same area at the same time definitely still get together. And then the ones that aren't able to on the actual day, when they are able to, we just do it up for them as well. And we do our own thing because it doesn't matter if you're technically celebrating it exactly on the day, which has never been the biggest deal for us. We've never been really hung up about the day on the calendar. We've never really been that stringent about, it has to be this exact day. It's about the celebration, right? It's about coming together as a family. It's about celebrating the birth of Jesus. It's about celebrating togetherness. It's about those family moments. It's about, the magic and joy of Christmas. And when you're celebrating something like that, it doesn't matter if you're actually doing that on the day the calendar says is Christmas. It's about doing it when you're able to be together. And so for us, we've always made almost every day that special, but Christmas being such a major thing for us, we try to do it on the actual holiday, but we're not able to. We make up the difference. So that's really what a brown Christmas looks like these days for the wolf pack. And we do, of course, end up having multiple feasts because of that, because as you probably already know, I really love to cook. I love to cook. I love to make a big feast, and several of my brothers like to do that kind of thing. And so we will end up having multiple feasts. So like if we're not able to all be at the same place at the same time, we'll like have one feast and then another feast a few weeks later or something like that. Or if we are able to, we end up doing a couple different dinners and then all meeting up right after with all of our leftovers put together. That's also a lot of fun. And just getting to have that joy of Christmas, and also getting to see the magic being continued to go on and to grow with the nieces and nephews is also super cool. To get to see that perpetuated with the next generation of Browns is super cool. So the magic of Christmas continues. All right, next question is from Darlene. How's your mom doing, and is she in the hospital? So no, mom is not in the hospital. Mom is actually doing really well. Mom has gotten all of her recent cancer scans and tests back, and she's still in the clear, super healthy, doing really, really well. So mom, as far as health goes, is doing great. She did have, like last year, months and months and months ago, she had a pneumonia scare. So she was hospitalized for a little while, but she pulled through and she's doing a lot better now. She's prone to getting like pneumonia when she is exposed to certain things because of her lungs being in a weakened state, given that she had such extreme lung cancer. So she's very susceptible to those kinds of things, and it's something she just has to really watch out for. But no, mom is doing really good. Mom is doing really well. And thank you very much for asking. And also this question, this answer goes out to a lot of y'all guys, because a lot of y'all are always asking how mom's doing, how's her health and all that. And mom is doing very good. Thank you very much for asking, everybody. I want to give a special shout out and thank you to everyone out there who is always asking about mom and the family, because y'all guys have shown so much love and support for my mom over the years and through her cancer battle and everything that has transpired and losing dad. And y'all guys have just been there for her in a way that is really cool. It's super awesome. And it does not go unnoticed. It is definitely something that I appreciate. It's something that my siblings appreciate. It is something that the family appreciates. So shout out to y'all guys. Thank you very much for being so cool, so supportive, and for giving so much love and support to my mom. I do really appreciate it. All right, next question is from Wanda Elaine Stever. I think that's how you pronounce the last name. Do you ever smile? Yes, occasionally I do. I'm a little more serious, I guess, than most of the members of my family, and I can come across that way. But yes, I do on occasion break out the smile. All right, next question is from Dave Williamsons. How are things with the casino boat? I worked at the marina in Charleston where you were for several months and was curious to how things went when you left. So that could be a podcast in itself. There was a boat that I was fixing up for a while, and we put a lot of work into it. It was something that was super cool. I loved it. It was a massively awesome endeavor, and unfortunately, it was something that didn't work out, and I had to pivot because of everything that was going on with the family and the property and my mom's cancer battle and just everything that was going on. And I had to make the decision to work towards things with the family, and ended up having to let that go. It does not mean that I have let go of the ocean or my dream of having a really nice boat and being able to sail the Bahamas, because someday I will find my way back to the sea. I always do, because I am a sailor at heart. The land just doesn't move right. All right, and so for now, that is the end of the list of questions that I have so far. So if anyone listening right now has a question that didn't get answered, if y'all guys are curious about anything, I will be doing other episodes for answering y'all guys' questions and responding to comments. So if you want to leave a comment down below, if you want to send in a question through our website, alaskanbushpeople.com, we have a contact page on there as well. Also, you can just drop a comment on any of the different social media and let me know what y'all guys think or what questions you might have, and I'll get to answering as many of them as I feel like answering, or as many of them as I can on a future episode. So I hope y'all guys enjoyed the episode. Thank you very much for joining me again here on Brown Overboard. I will see y'all guys next time. Remember to always respect the danger.